Good evening from Komb Ombo Temple. We are on the Nile. We're on the kink in the Nile because the Nile goes straight, has a little kink, and then goes straight again. We're at the kink. And we're on our cruise. So we stopped to see this temple. It's the evening. It's a beautiful evening. So you can see out there beautiful stars and such. And I'm here with Hoda. And Hoda, of course, is the goddess of all explanation of Egyptian art. But she wants to give you an explanation of how to read ancient Egyptian art. Now, it is a little noisy here, so we might have to move around a little bit to find a quiet spot. Maybe, can we go into the next room there, Hoda? Okay. So the way these cruises work is when we arrive, everybody arrives at the same time, all the boats. So that's why even if it's evening, it's 5:30, something like that, it looks more crowded than it actually should be. All right, tell me.
Oh, okay. Welcome to the temple of Komb Ombo, a temple that dates back to 118 before Christ. The actual temple was like larger than what we can see at the moment. It did suffer from the flood and from the sand that covered the temple up till 1890. It was totally covered with sand till it was finally restored. The temple is one of a kind. It's a well temple that was dedicated to two different gods. If you ever come to ancient Egyptian temples, usually it would be dedicated to only one god. Unlike this one, two gods used to be worshipped equally inside the temple. To the right hand side, most of the scenes they were dedicated to Sobek, the crocodile-headed god. The scenes here to the left hand side, they're dedicated to Horus, the falcon-headed god. If you ever go into any of the temples, usually you would see that the ceiling is decorated with the vulture. The vulture is the goddess of Upper Egypt with the two wings protecting everybody who is visiting the temple. If you look up there, you can see traces of the original colors. The whole ceiling, and up there, the whole ceiling had the vulture. Why the vulture? The vulture, female vulture, because ancient Egyptian noticed that she's the fastest bird when it comes to attacking her nest, which is her house. The same for the temple, which is the house of God on earth. Anybody would try to attack the temple, the house of God on earth, the vulture is gonna stop him. That's the point of having the vulture on the ceiling of the temple. Let's get closer and try to find some beautiful hieroglyph. Maybe we go back.
Yeah, You guys, give me just a second to hang on. I am looking for a microphone for her because it is really noisy out here. So, actually, I'm going to give it to you, Hoda.
Yeah, sure.
You carry while I look for my headphones.
Yeah, it's super crowded. Yeah, but beautiful in a way.
Well, let's keep going anyway. Let's try and find a quieter spot.
Here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, come on, let's go, Hoda. Sorry, I know that it's super noisy, so we're trying to find a quieter spot or headphones, and we can't find either, but let's show you just how beautiful some of these things are. Yeah, you found a quiet spot?
Can you see it over there? Yeah.
Okay.
Just to help you reading ancient Egyptian pictures or stories on the wall. Once you come to any of the temples, you always have to look to the most important element in any of the temples, which is the king. It's easy to identify the king. He would always be represented while he's wearing his crown, and we had different types of crown. They're easy to recognize. The most important thing is going to be the offerings. Kings would be holding trays full of cookies, or they could be giving oils and essence as an offering. The third most important thing is going to be the god. The god in ancient Egypt used to have different forms, like a human form, like an animal form, or a bird form. So if you see a man body and a crocodile head, that's the crocodile-headed god. If you see a man body and a falcon god, that's the falcon-headed god. It's very obvious up there. So we see the king here. Here is the king wearing his beautiful crown, and behind him his wife. This is Ptolemy, and this is Cleopatra, and he's giving offerings to the falcon-headed god Horus.
That's actual Cleopatra.
That's
One of the Cleopatras.
one of the 7 Cleopatras that we have. We had
Okay.
in ancient Egypt 7 Cleopatra. Cleopatra, the famous one, is the last one of the Greek family that used to rule Egypt. They died almost 54 before Christ. So let's practice one more time. Here. If you look at this wall, the most important one in this picture is the king. Then the second important thing is the offering, a tray full of cookies. And then the last important thing is the crocodile-headed god.
Okay.
So we see pictures for crocodile and for falcon gods because they were both worshipped in this place.
So Hoda was telling us earlier that the reason that the crocodiles were here, and actually there are petrified crocodiles in the museum underneath here, is because this is zigzaggy, this is the kind of knot of the Nile,
Exactly.
that they had a problem with crocodiles because the water was so stagnant.
That's interesting. The Nile from Aswan till Komb Ombo runs on a straight path. But once we reach here, the Nile loses its shape. It takes like a sharp turn to the right and then to the left and then to the right and then again goes on a straight path. This meant that the Nile loses the shape, and during the flooding season, this area becomes more marshy, like a lake area. And this has made it a perfect habitat for crocodiles. Why? Because crocodiles, they don't have tongues. They don't have tongues, so once they catch a prey, if they're not hungry, they're gonna take this prey. This prey could be an animal, a bird, or a human being. If they're not hungry, they're gonna smash it with their mouth. Then they're gonna take it and hide it in their underwater nest. If it's a fast current water, that means that their prey is not gonna last for a long time. That's why they prefer stagnant water, so they can hide their prey.
Yep, so that's why here there were lots and lots of crocodiles on the Nile, and because of that, they built a temple and they created basically this story of a crocodile god. And that was a really good question somebody asked our Hoda today in our group. They asked, who comes up with these stories? I'd never even thought to ask that question. It was a great question. But as she pointed out, it's the priests that were making up these stories. So they would come up with different mythologies, and the mythologies are particular to each temple. So if you have the god Horus, he might be different depending on the temple that you're at. So it's a very interesting way of looking at things, but I thought before we go, just to give you some more images, this is our crocodile god. Oh, with somebody's phone in the shot. There you go. Crocodile god. And the other interesting piece I wanted to mention that Hoda talked about is this is a Ptolemaic temple.
Yes.
Which means it comes from basically when the Egyptian kind of kingdoms were sort of over because they had been dominated by the Greeks.
Yeah, but when we say Ptolemaic, we don't mean that they were built by Ptolemies or
No.
Greeks. No, they were built by Egyptians for Egyptians, and the kings that fund building those temples, they've never been here. But the thing is that they were ruling the country. So just to make everybody happy and satisfied, they fund the building, the temples for the people so they can practice their religion and they don't cause any troubles. So those are Egyptian temples built by Egyptians for Egyptians, okay? But during the time when Egypt was ruled by the Greeks, okay?
Yeah. So it's important to remember that Egypt was an incredible kingdom, independent, all the different Egyptian rulers that went from more or less 3000 BC up to the time of the Greek domination, which was the time of Alexander the Great. What year was that?
Alexander, 332 before Christ.
332 BC. So if you've seen...
The Greek ruled Egypt for nearly 250 years. 250 years.
Yeah.
And the last one of the Greek rulers was Cleopatra. This is like there's some sort of a confusion because people they think Cleopatra is Egyptian. She's not. She's Egyptian by birth.
Yeah, so she was actually more Greek. So just to put this in a timeline with things that I talk about, I talk about Sicily and I talk about Italy a lot. if we put this into a timeline, remember Antony and Cleopatra, that's the end of ancient Egypt as we know it, and it becomes a Roman colony. But when we talk about temples in the Ptolemaic period, we're talking about the time of the Peloponnesian War. So the 400s, which would be when they built a lot of the temples in Sicily, a lot of the big cities like Syracuse. So if we're putting it in a timeline, the great Greek temples that I take you to see in Sicily were built around the same time as this. What was the year on this one? Remind me.
180 before Christ.
Oh, 180 BC. Well,
Yes.
geez, this is like newer than a lot of the Greek
See up
temples.
there all the beautiful traces of the original colors
Oh,
up there,
yeah.
the red and blue, and the wings of the falcon god and the solar disk and the two cobras protecting the temple.
Gorgeous. Well, you know what? Hanging out with Hoda is very much like taking a university course in Egyptology. So I think I deserve like a master's degree from having gone on this trip with you. So we're going to continue to unravel these mysteries for you at home. Again, we have I can read it already. There's our crocodile god right there. And is that Cleopatra? Or no, that's a goddess.
That's a goddess. That's Hathor.
Yeah, Hathor, because she's got the sun disk on her head. See, I'm getting it. So coming to Egypt is such a wonderful education, and it's all the stuff you've already heard before. So, you know, like I keep saying, put it on your list. If you've seen Italy and you want to know more about ancient history, this is the place for it, and this is the woman to teach you. So before we go, I know she's literally like half my size, but before we go, my sister Hoda, we have started Adventures with Hoda, which is her own Facebook page. So please follow her Facebook page, like it, and remember, liking is more important than following for Facebook algorithms. Like it, and then she's going to start manning her own Facebook page with all Egypt all the time. Also Dubai and Emirates stuff as well. So please be sure to like her, and let's get her off to a really enormous start with her own Facebook presence.
Thank you so much for your support.
All right, everybody. So that's all for today. Tomorrow we're going to be going to Aswan and seeing. I'm not sure what else. I think we have some fun market stuff we can do tomorrow, but more Egypt coming up. Finishing with Abu Simbel in a couple of days, and I just want to give a mention that for our Patreon meeting this month, it's going to be the Abu Simbel Light Show. You're going to be able to watch that live on a Patreon link that I'm going to post later today. So thanks for your support, everybody. We'll see you again soon.